Hello, everybody. I just wanted to share this study with you that Barna did, and I recently ran across this. Jesus rises fueled by younger adults. And that's a connection to Jesus they're talking about, obviously. He already rose. Um, anyway, at a time when organized religion in America faces scrutiny and skepticism, a new Barna study as part of the State of the Church initiative shows a groundswell of commitment to Jesus over the last 4 years. And again, this is we're going to see in a little bit is out of young adults. When we look at the percent of U.S. adults overall that have made a personal commitment to follow Jesus, and it's still an important part of their life today, going back to 2000, it was at 65%. About 2009, 2010, it hit an all-time high of 77, but then it dropped to an all-time low around 2020, 2021 to 54%. But all of a sudden now has jumped up 12% in just the last 4 to 5 years. And again, that is mostly, pardon me, the young adults who are responsible for that. And by young adults, we mean Gen Z and Millennials. And in case you're not aware, like I wasn't, of all the ages of Gen Z and Millennials and so forth, Gen Z is our youngest. Those not including people under 10, obviously, because it stops at 2015. But it's the one born between 1999 and 2015. Millennials were born between 84 and 98. Then Gen X was the next youngest behind me, was 65 and 83, and my boomer generation, I hadn't made it to elder yet, but one day we'll get there. So anyway, now that we know what those ages are, and again we're talking these two groups here, look at the difference between 2019 and 2025, 6-year time frame. Red is women, blue is men. Women went from 54 to 61, men went from 52 to 67 in that generation, who say, I have made a personal commitment to follow Jesus, and that is still important in my life today. Among millennials, women went from 58 to 64, men went from 52 to 71. Huge jump. When we get into the older generations, one younger than me, women went from 66 to 66. Men went from 57 to 64, a small increase. Boomers, my generation, women actually dropped from 70 to 66, and men 53 to 62. So we can see this is definitely being fueled by this younger generation, and even though they're saying, I made a commitment to Jesus, I want him as part of my life, they are not saying they are Christians or that they are religious. 3 in 10 people who don't identify as Christians say they've made a personal commitment to Jesus. 30% of them are saying, I made a commitment to Jesus, but I'm not committing to being religious or being in the church. It's really an odd thing, isn't it? So here's the percent of non-Christian adults who say they've made a personal commitment. Again, like I said, around 30% are saying, yeah, I made a commitment to Jesus still in my important life, but not the church, not to be a Christian. I didn't make that commitment. So as we look into it a little bit further, total Americans, when they associate positive thoughts with these things, number one, Jesus Christ, he's doing real well. Total 71%, Christians 84%, which means 16% of Christians don't view Jesus favorably, which is kind of weird. 58% of other faith and 40% no faith. All still have positive thoughts about Jesus. From there it starts to go down. Spirituality is still pretty strong. 65-71 total, 75-84 Christians, 57-58 neck and neck there, and 42-40 pretty close as well. Now we're going to drop, because now we're going to go, what are your positive thoughts about the Bible? What are your positive thoughts about Christianity? Christians still holding 74, only 25% of Christians don't have a positive thought about Christianity. Almost half of all adults don't. 64% don't in other faiths, and 80% almost don't with no faith. have a good view of Christianity. Churches in your community. My goodness, we can't even hardly get above 50 except for the Christians, and that's barely above 50. Christian pastors or priests, evangelicals. As you can see, it just continues to shrink, 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 shrink. Why is that? Meet the spiritual but not religious group. The ones who don't want to identify as Christians and they don't want to go to church. Once synonymous, religious and spiritual have now come to describe seemingly distinct, but sometimes overlapping, domains of human activity. So, there are other studies here you can link, and I'll give you the links to all this. I'm going to keep this short, hopefully. But I think you're getting the point that when these groups are saying, yeah, I'm all for Jesus, I like what he stands for, I accept all that, but don't call me religious, don't call me Christian. And these groups, spiritual but not religious, SBNR1, SBNR2, and you can see they're made up of a mix of different people. SBNR1 still has religions in it, but very small. SBNR2 has agnostic, atheist, unaffiliated, that kind of group. And 1/3 say they're spiritual, 33%, but again, not Christians, not I love Jesus, but not the church. It says there. One last thing, and then we'll tie this up. And again, I'll give you the link so you can look this up yourself. Where political leanings are, conservatives, moderate, and liberals. Liberals and moderates even very much do not see themselves as religious or Christians, and it is because of the church. Your conservatism and religiosity tend to go hand in hand, but the divide is usually unusually stark. It may be that left-leaning spiritual seekers feel they are without a spiritual home in the church, place they likely is hostile to their political attitudes, particularly around hot-button and often decisive issues like abortion and same-sex marriage. And if you go to a four-wall church, let me ask you, if a gay couple came in, how would your church congregation react? If a person came in tattooed from head to toe and smelling like beer or alcohol, how would your congregation react? Let that sink in for a minute. Now, let me ask you the same question. If a gay couple walked into where Jesus was with his disciples, how would he react? If a tattooed guy smelling of alcohol walked in Jesus and his disciples, how would he react? Give me your thoughts in the comments, or I'll put my email in there. You can email me if you want to talk about it more, but the message is clear to me. Jesus is still doing well. Religion and churches, not so much. We need to treat people like Jesus would treat people. Let's wake up, people. Let's be more like Jesus.